So these dogs were originally, or the history of the dog. Let's start at that point. Dogs really emerged round about 135,000 years ago. Well, let's start about 135,000 years ago, with changes in the indigenous Asian wolf, and those wolves started establishing slightly different behaviors. They became understood as pariah wolves that moved away from their traditional sort of wolf pack structure, started associating more with people. The pariah wolf eventually moved into a proto-dog context, where it started becoming more identifiable as what we know now as a dog, and less identifiable as a wild animal. The proto-dog then moved into a gap we would understand as pariah dog, and from the pariah dog it moved into what we would call a village or common dog, Canis familiaris. So that movement started about 135,000 years ago. The first time we really understand or see the emergence of a domesticated canid is about 20,000 years ago. So that's quite a long period. You're talking about 100,000 years. It's a long period for this process to have happened from wolf to dog. And it's not to say that they are therefore the same, because in fact they show distinct behavior differences between dogs and wolves. Dogs are a lot more pliable in their minds than wolves are, who are very, very rigid and fixed in the way that they think and approach problem solving. So that is the process of domestication that took place, and essentially we got to the point where dogs understood us as part of their pack, part of their realm, and accepted us completely in their space, and understood them to be themselves to be part of our space. That is the domestication process, and all in all, they're off after something that's got their interest there. So all in all, that process took a long period of time, and we arrive at a space where we are now with a domesticated dog. And those dogs then, some of them would find a purpose, being slightly longer-legged. They would find purpose as runners or hunters, and others would find other kinds of purposes. The Africanus purpose emerged in the context of a rural settlement, where people would need to have a household dog, a dog that is a kind of jack of all trades. When you needed to hunt for food, he could hunt with you and increase your prosperity in bringing food to the pot. When you needed a flock guardian, and that really is probably one of his most significant traits. They make exceptionally good flock guardians, and it's probably the purpose that this dog will continue serving going forward. It's and then you would need a household dog that can defend you, warn you when there's predators around, defend you when things untoward come into your environment. And as those to service those tasks, this dog is extremely well suited. It's hardy, it's evolved in this part of the world over generations, and so it's hardy to parasites endemic in the area. My dogs, for example, don't have any tick bite treatment. They survive quite comfortably in this bush. You can often find ticks on them. When I do, I just take them off, but they don't have any chemical tick bite prevention at all. They survive quite comfortably together with these parasites. They're extremely hardy. They don't get sick. They They don't fall ill. The vet bill on these dogs is absolutely negligible. They get by with very little food, and they really are an extremely economical dog in every sense of the word. They're economical not only to keep, but they're also economical in everything that they do. You'll see that they are quite passive through the day, but if something piques their interest, their action is there 110%. And they're efficient in their movement. They don't use gaits that are not necessary. They're not bouncing off the walls. They're extremely calm and peaceful. But when you need action from them, it is absolutely, it is there, you know. It's that activity that brought me to the sport of dryland sledding with them. In the bush at the back here, I used to take them running, and when that became too much, when they got too fast for me running, I would take them cycling, and they would outrun my bicycle. But when they spotted a hare, they would really take off, and you know, I'd stand there with my head in shame watching them eat this hare. People would go by and I'd be saying, I'm really, really sorry, you know. Sometimes people were sympathetic and sometimes not so sympathetic, and I thought I've got to, if I want to keep them running, which is what they love doing, then I've got to find a sport where I can manage them and control them while they're running. And so I got involved in the sport of dryland sledding. And essentially what that does is you put a dog in harness, you connect the harness to yourself, and you hit the trails. And the dogs sometimes run out in front of you, sometimes they run with you, but they're connected to you at all times. And these dogs took to it like hand in a glove. They were absolute naturals from the moment they started. In our first season doing that sport, they would win every single event that they took part in. And in that same year, we decided to take part in the national sprint championships, 24-kilometer sprint with two dogs pulling me on the bicycle. It was held in Colesberg that year, and we decided in our arrogance to take part in the advanced category, even though it was our first year doing the sport. And they were the 20 national sprint champions, my two-dog team. That really means that they ran the 24-kilometer sprint faster than any other dog team in the country. And that's pulling a bicycle, of course. There are other categories in the sport. You know, that's bike joring, there's scooters, and then there are the insane people that just run with their dogs, where there's a single dog, but that dog ends up flying, and you've got to try and keep up with it. So they were the daft party. But in terms of the bike joring, my team of two dogs was the top team in the country in that year. And we decided the next year at that event, a lot of people are husky enthusiasts, and they all said to me, well, we can see your dogs are long-legged and fast, so we can understand why they would beat these huskies in sprints, but they'll never match a husky in endurance. So I'm in the sport for the dogs, really, and I just thought, well, that's fine, let's test them. So the next year, 2012, we partook in the 150-kilometer war trail event, which is held in the Eastern Cape War Trail Valley. It's between Berkeley East and Rhodes, and the trail is grueling. It's on rough terrain. It's in a very mountainous area, and the weather is snowy sometimes. You run through snow, sometimes you're over ice, you're going through rivers, you're on rocks, you're up mountains on gravel. And these dogs did the 150-kilometer war trail and finished ahead of anybody else. We were 45 minutes ahead of the next competitor. So at that event, there was a vet that was the event veterinarian, Dr. Rick Long. He was the, I think, vice chairperson of the International Sled Dog Veterinary Medical Association from Canada, and they're chasing a mole here. They're sniffing the mole out. That's why they're digging. So he was at the event, and every 20 you have a vet check when you start the event, and every 20 kilometers you have a forced veterinary check, a compulsory veterinary check. They check the dog's pulse rate and breathing and hydration. They check the muscles and the pads to make sure that the dog is in good condition to continue. And these dogs made the vet check every single time, and at the end of the event they went through their final vet check, and Rick turned to me and said, "These dogs have got iron pads. They're absolutely Lungile. They're absolutely tough for another 150 kilometers." Okay. And so much so that about 4 years after the event, he contacted me and said, "Look, he's giving a lecture in Spain, and his topic is dogs' foot health, and he'd like to get my dogs in on the lecture and get an idea on what we did to get the dogs' feet so strong." So the result is that in Spain, a whole lot of vets and event veterinarians, sled dog enthusiasts learned all about the toughness of the AfriCanus feet, and they really do have tough pads. There are two components to that. The one is genetic. A dog's got to start with strong pads, and the other component is building it up with the exercises that you perform. And these dogs did that exceptionally well. In leading up to that event, we do about 2,000 kilometers. We put about 2,000 kilometers on their feet. So that means we're out in the bush at the back here every day for about 3 months, doing 30-40 kilometers a day, and get to the point where their feet are really tough for that kind of competition. Well, we would leave out in the gate in the front here, and then we go over the roads for about 3 kilometers to the gatehouse. Then we get from the gatehouse, we hit this little hill at the back here. So you can see it's the same kind of gravel of the road that you see over here. So we come up that hill and we continue out in the bush through there for 30-40 kilometers, you know, and then on the way back we do the same. So that toughness on their pads, the road on their pads, the hard surfaces, the gravel surfaces, stones that they're going over, all of that builds up a strength on those pads, which is very, very important if you want to do a grueling event like 150 kilometers running. It's a tough event. The weather on that event was also unbelievable. I mean, as I say, it snowed some periods, and up in the mountains you can start off and it's beautiful and sunny when you kick off in the early morning, and an hour later the wind is up. It's just about blowing you off the road, you know, off the trail, and then rain comes and then sun again after that. I mean, it's incredible. In one day you can have 4 seasons, you know. It's really, really tough. I'll tell you that 150 Ks was probably tougher on me than it was on the dogs.